Well, for the second time in about 3 sessions, we saw a walkout during a legislative hearing. Back in 2023, House Democrats walked out during an emotional floor debate over trying to change Idaho's abortion ban. Today, this session, it wasn't lawmakers, it was, well, people in a committee. And they walked out over an issue that is just as emotional and controversial. Several people getting up, walking out, leaving the House State Affairs Committee as they were considering House Joint Memorial 1, essentially a strongly worded letter that they want to send to the U.S. Supreme Court, asking them to reverse the Obergefell decision, which is the one that gave everybody or gave same-sex couples the right to marry.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And this letter that they're sending, this memorial, is a strongly worded letter just to kind of ask about that. So here's the question. Why did they do this? What is going on? Well, the LGBTQ community in Idaho is worried because of really the implications here about maybe this doesn't change Idaho law today, but where is this headed? But the sponsor of the topic, Republican Representative Heather Scott, she framed this in a much different light than overturning same-sex marriage in the state of Idaho or anywhere. Representative Scott says she sees this as a big picture issue.
This memorial today in front of you is about upholding federalism and a state's rights to make our own decisions. It is not about defining marriage. It's about who should be defining marriage. When we have federal overreach like this, it further erodes our state's rights.
So others in committee talked more about the issue of same-sex marriage, and the memorial makes it very clear that is what this is about in the specific lens of states' rights, saying that the Supreme Court took away Idaho's rights to discriminate against same-sex couples, going on to point out that their perspective in detail, marriage as an institution has been recognized as the union of one man and one woman for more than 2,000 years. Democrat Representative Todd Achilles asked, where does the conversation end on this topic? Interracial couples, is that going to be targeted? He went on to make a financial argument, and others cut through the state versus federal issue to talk about what matters most to them. But we'll start with Representative Achilles.
When you look at the list, there's over 1,300 rights and benefits that couples receive from being married. We're effectively putting a tax on same-sex couples that opposite-sex couples don't have.
This act of sheer judicial hubris, which has purported to redefine and has effectively undefined marriage, which is the mechanism by which families are created. By virtue of that fact, I, as a private citizen, am required to endorse and support something that violates my freedom of conscience.
Not everybody believes in God. Not everybody who votes or pays taxes believes in God, and therefore I do not believe that we should be turning to God in a matter of morals and marriage.
By the way, if you are wondering, yes, that is Julianne Young. You heard from in that soundbite. She is now just a private citizen. There may be some confusion. She is no longer a state house representative. But, Brian, we did hear from her and others in committee for about 2 hours. Again, it passed on party line. As you can imagine, yeah. Republicans voting for, Democrats against. Will now go to the full House for consideration.
And just on some background here, Idaho's law already recognizes marriages between a man and a woman. But the 2015 Supreme Court decision, Obergefell, that basically nullified that. It's still on the books, though. So should they overturn it, well, then just like the abortion law, it triggers that one back into effect.
And there was action in Idaho that went from the district court up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, back and forth. And that basically mandated that Idaho had to recognize same-sex marriages that happened in a place like California. This is a topic, again, I think you said it best, that this memorial, it does nothing, but it does say a lot. Yep. And I already have heard from members of the LGBTQ community that say something like this is enough to push them and their families out of Idaho, something they don't want to do. They don't want to have to abandon their life here in Idaho, but when they see lawmakers talking about that, it makes people in those communities very nervous.
Be surprised how many people on that side of the argument, though, would be fine if they just up and left the state of Idaho. All right, thanks, Joe. All right, now that you've settled into the show, it's time to text us. We want to hear what you have to say about today's show or what you'd like to hear about in another show. Send us your questions, your comments, and your concerns. 208-321-5614. That is the number. And remember, include the hashtag #the208. Oh, and your name helps. That way, we know who it's from when we share it at the end of the show.